in custody. This is Vonda Evans.
And Macy Gaines.
Okay, very good. And we've got some informative information for you. So let's get right to it. Okay, Macy, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a lawyer,
Yes.
and she is beautiful. Is she driving or is she beautiful? I'm sorry. But anyway, tell us about that.
So I am a lawyer. I've been practicing for about 8 years. I practice in California and Michigan. I have 2 children. I run a practice with my husband, Robbie Gaines, and practice primarily probate and family law.
Okay, very good. So let's get right to it. You know, I've got a lot of people that just say, listen, I'm fed up. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to get some type of divorce, legal separation, and we're going to jump right into it. How does a divorce start? Tell us in your own words. How do you do that?
So the start of the divorce is probably the simplest process. You file something called a complaint. It's very legal in nature, but at the same time, it's quick and easy to start. You have to fill out and submit a form indicating that you are married and that you're seeking the divorce. You outline, whether or not you have children who are minors and whether or not there's property or debts to be divided. But yes, you start the filing, and once that's processed with the court, the divorce starts.
Okay, now here's the situation. Let's talk about it. Everybody starts off, they've been married. We're going to have a friendly divorce. Have you seen many of those?
We've seen some. We've seen some of those, and you can actually do a joint petition for divorce if everything is agreed upon and you plan not to contest anything. So I do see those. I see adults or two people come and say, we have this property, I have that property, we don't have any issues, we want to split this. And at that point, what we do is sit down with them together, and we'll come up with a way to make sure there's no conflict of interest and make sure that everyone's interests are protected properly and that it's done as quick as possible.
Now, for those individuals who maybe, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that most divorces start out amicable. Somebody gets to somebody's head. Somebody says, you can, they may come back with a child support recommendation or something. And all of a sudden that person says, I don't want to pay that kind of money. And something jumps off, and then it's all hell, holy war going on. Now, when you have children, do you have to have a referral to friend of the court, or can I just say, I'm going to give you $100 a week?
So you have to both agree not to use the friend of court services. So it's not often that that's allowed, because there's always one person who needs them. There's one person who needs those services to benefit from. But I always say that it's good to opt out of the friend of court services, because there's much more that a father or mother, whoever has to pay child support, can do for that child outside of a number that the friend of court comes up with.
But what if, in fact, it starts off that way? And, you're still the honeymoon phase kind of the divorce. And they, then after a while, they start dating somebody else. And then that 200 that you agreed to goes to 150, go to 100, go to 25, go to nothing. Is it kind of better to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it? What would you suggest to people who have minor children? Do we go to friend of the court just so I can have it as something in my pocket? Or if we agree to it, say we're going to get $200 a week, he falls off because of COVID. How long does it take to petition to get it?
Yeah, you're going to want to stay in front of court solely because of the issue with COVID and the delay in processing. Just even child support orders. It's very difficult right now. And also it's easy. I think it makes things easy for the person who has to pay and the person who has to receive. If you do this outside of court, you have to find a way to make this payment every month. You want to make sure that there's proof that you actually paid it in the event that there's issues down the line. And with the person who's receiving it, you get it right away. You get it on a consistent basis, and it makes things run over. It makes things go a lot smoother, and you could eliminate potential issues where they don't belong and worry about other things.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, now let me ask you this. Do you have to have a lawyer in order to get a divorce?
You don't at all, but it is advised if you're planning to have contested issues and if there's minor children.
Okay, very good. So let me ask this question. Do you get the right to a court-appointed attorney?
No, there are no court-appointed attorneys. in a divorce action. So you do need a lawyer. You do need to find a private lawyer, and one that really meets your needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Okay, now let me ask this. What is the average cost of a divorce?
So that varies. It's hard to say, but I know that everybody on, anybody who walks in our office, they want to know a number. They have to hear a number, and I understand that by all means. So generally, if it's uncontested and there aren't that many issues, it's generally between 3,500 to 5,000 uncontested. If it is contested, I mean, they could range and start at 5,000 to 7,500 and go up to 20 to 30,000. It just depends on how many issues there are.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, great. So now let me ask this question. So somebody calls me, I call you, okay, and I know that we start off, and the starting that we start off with is 5,000 if they've got kids, okay? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that 5,000 with kids, does that just go in your pocket, and you and your husband go on a trip? Where does that money go to?
It definitely doesn't just go by pocket. I wish it just went to my pocket. But there's a lot of different things that go along with it. First of all, we do retainers. So in our office,
what's a retainer?
So it's just a down payment, and it's an advance on hours for us to work and work nonstop, really. So in our office, we'll say we need a retainer for this amount. We save it and put it aside. And each day and each time we work on your case.
And that includes phone calls too, right?
Phone calls, emails.
Okay.
Text messages.
Okay, so I'm just saying, every time you pick up, hey girl, how you doing? Listen, I just wanted to ask you something. Today he was supposed to come at 5:00. He didn't come until 5:06. So what should I do? Okay, anytime that they call and they get information. So your suggestion and my suggestion, having gone through a divorce and got the bills for phone bills, is cut down as much as you can regarding the communication, because that eats away. So just walk me through it. Okay, so you have children. I give you a $5,000 retainer. Okay, and then once you have, or you have property, that's a 5,000, right? Normally, traditionally. Okay, very good. So I come to you. I got 5,000. I give it to you, and you take credit cards. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I sit down with you. What is the process? You get my information, I do my questionnaire. Then what do you legally do with that information at
So
that
we
point?
start the action. We'll start the divorce. We'll file the necessary paperwork to put everybody on notice that a case is actually starting. And then usually we do have to wait for a response from the other party. Hopefully there's another attorney on the other side, because we can all sit down at the table and try to talk about what we can settle and what we cannot settle. But from there, we would have a couple hearings set by the court. One would be something called a settlement conference, and it's more of a benchmark date so that the court can check in on us and say, where are you guys at with this? What is settled? What is not? Are you guys going to trial? Are you going to go, are you going to resolve this? What different things are you going to do? And so after that, we would schedule mediation. All the courts generally will force us into mediation, where you can be very productive there.
Okay.
I do not shy away from it. Sometimes clients say, well, I want to go to trial. I want to go to trial. I'm not going to agree to anything on mediation because I'm not over here to settle. But a lot of times they're very productive. You know what the other side is thinking. And a lot of times you can go in there thinking that settling is weak or thinking that settling is losing. But the mediators are crafted and skilled in what they do, and can often help you guys reach resolution.
Okay, so anyway, so your billable rate is how much?
So ours ranges about 250 to 350.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now when you get that retainer, you're eating away at that. Is that correct?
Yes, but you'll always know what you get.
What I'm saying to you is that's like your down payment on your car. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a down payment. And then after that, how many? So you say 250 and now just say 300, 5,000. That's 20 hours worth of work. Okay. Okay. But that's filing, taking phone calls. That's
talking to the other attorneys, legal research if it's a new issue, calling the court.
Okay. Then what's your billable hours?
So the billable hours billing against it, or
after you exhaust the 5,000, then it's $250 to $300 an
Yes.
hour.
Yep.
Okay, very good. And so my point being to you, you traditionally cannot do a whole divorce of 5,000, can you?
It's hard. It is hard,
But it's a quality.
Right.
It's a quality.
You're gonna get
Okay.
everything.
Okay. All right. I mean, it depends on what you want. And my feeling is, having gone through one, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Now I know you trying to be nice about it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. If somebody know that you are limited funds, you may not be able to get all the bells and whistles, i.e., this is what I'm talking about, not quality representation, but the extra. Like, I just feel like talking. Can you talk to me? Whatever. Okay. You can't get all that. But the point of it is, if you have property, please listen to me. For those people that have pensions, those people who have child support, it's incumbent upon you to get a good lawyer. There are people in all areas, be it divorce, be it criminal, everything, that can lowball. But let me tell you something, you get what you pay for. And when you get somebody and they say, well, I can do a murder case for $3,000, baby, all they gonna do, you just gonna get a warm body up in there. That's all you're gonna be able to do. And so
it is a quality thing, though. It's definitely a quality thing. You're gonna get consistency. You're gonna know what's going on with your case. You're gonna get an itemized list of what's been done, where your money's went, everything. So those things do count, because you need to know what's going on each step of the way. It's hard and it's emotional, and it is a rough time.
Okay, very good. So what I'm saying to you is, you have to make sure that you save up for it, because say, for instance, there are viewers here and they may have some property in Detroit. Okay, you can be anywhere in Detroit, the property is expensive. But if you get somebody, the other side gets a lawyer and they have a low comp, and they say, oh, this only worth 10,000. And then you come back and they said, oh my God, this is worth $100,000. You've lost $90,000 when you trying to do it yourself, or you trying to go along and get along with the other person. There are always going to be ways that people are always going to get over on you. To me, unfortunately, the analogy that I've always used was, divorce is like a form of death without a corpse. You see that person still breathing and everything, and you still want to fight that person. And then, love turns to war. But the main thing you want to do, and I tell the ladies, is you need to get out what you and the men too, what you invested in that relationship. Now, if you got a pension, you want to make sure that that pension is equitable. I remember having gone through a divorce. There were 4 words. I didn't know it. I'm a lawyer. I'm a judge. And those 4 words cost me over $100,000, because I didn't know what those words meant. And I just assumed, well, it seemed like it's okay to me. And as a result, it wasn't consistent with the judgment. And I lost $100,000 because I was being cheap and not investing in a good lawyer that would have been able to say, listen, I found those 4 words, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? So those are things that you don't want to be after the fact, that you find things out that can be able to affect that. Okay, especially when you're dealing with property. Now I think in Detroit, especially, the property value has gone up almost 100%. So you may have a home that you bought for $30,000. Now that home worth $300,000, and you want to be able to have a lawyer that is knowledgeable and is going to get the right comps that's going to be in place, so that you can get your fair share. Because if you have somebody, the spouse has a better lawyer, they're going to give you a low ball, throw you out there or something. You like, oh, I can get that, when in reality, it could definitely be more. Now, let me ask a question, talking about property. What happens, and I get these calls all the time, people ask me, well, I had the property before I was married, but we've been married 20 years. My husband says I can't get anything. Is that true?
No. So you do have the property. It depends on what amount of equity was in it, or is in it at the time of divorce, and what the appraisals would say. But you also have to identify when you had acquired it. And there's a way that lawyers will be able to identify how much you keep as a sole owner for as long as you've owned it. and
But
how much you have to share.
right, but
it's
my
not
point,
100% automatic.
right, but say for
But you're
instance,
not left with nothing.
exactly. So say for instance, I'm a home. It's in my husband's name, okay, and he had the house before us, but out of the family budget, we did additions. We got some new windows. We got some new roofs, and then he say, "Well, Kick Rocks, that was my name. Gone. You can't get done, girl. You can't get done. Gone somewhere." Is that true?
No. Now that makes it marital. So the title doesn't matter at that point.
Okay.
So you are married. You are building this house. It becomes your marital residence.
Even if that person owned it before you got there. So I had my house on Birch Crest, okay? And it was, I had for 5 years, and then I get married. But then my husband then put new windows in, or collectively we put new floors in, etc. Then I can't say, that was mine 5 years. You better go kick rocks.
No, you can't. The title doesn't matter at that point. The amount that you take away from it does, and that's where a lawyer comes in.
Okay, what about
so
this?
You can have your reimbursement for your additions, or you can go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Into the equity and how much it's worth.
All right. If my spouse owns houses in an LLC, okay, it's just him, okay, but he buying houses, rehabbing them, and flipping them. Do I get any of that money if we were married?
Is he doing this during the marriage?
Yep, during the marriage.
And is he using the source of money? He's using your marital money, I'm assuming.
Well, okay, but wait a minute. Here's the situation.
I'm inclined to just say you do get part of it.
Right, but this is the thing.
It's during the marriage. Money that should be directed towards your marriage is being used to, rehab and essentially run a business through them.
Okay, but I'm saying to you, and this is my ladies out here, my stay-at-home moms. Well, I don't have no job, and I don't make big money like that. Am I still entitled to get? Am I still entitled to get any money as a result? Because
you are taken care of under the law. So everything with divorce and family law is dealing with what is equitable. So not working and taking care of the kids is not something that's frowned upon in this court. So he can go work and you can stay at home, but you're still going to split what he brings home. So
listen, I get my income tax. I go to gains and gains. This is my last 5,000. My husband, or my soon to be ex, he's got all this money. He's working at the Ford. He's working, doing rehab. Could you ask the court if you could help me to pay you?
Yes, and we will. Again, it's an equitable court. They want to make sure that you're represented in the same way that your husband with all the money is. And so we can ask for a contribution towards fees, especially in light of the fact that the court will know you have less income and his can be equalized to assist you. You should never be left out without assistance or guidance because you don't have money and the other spouse does.
So I tell people that call me, I say, listen, your retainer is your ticket to the game. Okay, am I right about that?
It is, though. It is.
Wait a minute, hold on. It gets you exactly. But then once you get in the game, follow along, ladies and gents. You then can request your lawyer to say he got way more money than me. And in many times, you're saying that a judge will say, if you're the attorney, then we're going to make sure that you get money. Because in fact, ladies, let me say this to you. I had an opportunity when I was a judge, okay, because I had my children when I was on the bench. I said, I'm going to stay off a year. In 3 months, I was back to work. It's so much work at home. You cooking, you cleaning, you doing. Listen, let me tell you something. Let me say, I was like, oh, let me raise my hand. I gotta go back to work. This is too much. Okay. So what I'm saying to you, there is a value in what you do. The fact that you may not make as much money as him, the fact that you may be an LPN and he's able to have a bigger job or something like that, and you make less money than him, doesn't mean anything, because when you get a divorce, that's something that's factored in as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so that was my point. What about a pension? And he got a pension. Do I got a right to that if we've been married? Say we've been married 20 years. Do I get a right to that pension?
You do. So there is a very specific calculation that goes into that. And it basically gives you 50% of the marital share. So say he's working at the plant for 10 years, you then get married for a subsequent 20 years, you get half that was accumulated during your 20-year marriage.
So that means that they got to pay you?
So pay the other part. So whoever is entitled to it, yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
So let's just use husband and wife. Husband works at the plant, wife works at home. He pays her 50% of the marital portion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, now, can my spouse change my name off of his pension?
Like take your name off of it?
Yeah, well, he gonna divorce me. He gonna say, look, you gonna leave me, I'm taking your name off that pension.
No. So that's included in the order, and the pension companies will know who's supposed to be on it or not. So if you're removed wrongfully, then there's an issue there with your husband or the pension company.
Okay, very good.
But I would go for the pocket.
But let me ask this question. Company. Right. I got a life insurance. Can I walk down to HR and change her name off of that if she decides she's gonna file against me?
Yes.
But not with the pension.
Not pension.
Now, if I come to Gains and Gains and I say, listen, he got a pension and he has insurance, can you ask the judge for them not to take me off of there, or is that you can't do that?
There's a chance the judge will not allow that, but if you have minor children, it's always something to argue. You can ask them to keep the life insurance policy for your children's benefit.
Okay, let me ask this question to you. Can I borrow money from my pension or my 401k in order to finance my divorce? I just don't have it.
You can. And I mean, you're going to have to be frank with the court and let them know this is what I had to do. These are the measures I had to take. But, if there is a disparity in income, those things will eventually be equalized. So the court will understand those things. I'm not saying go empty it out and don't go pay somebody, 20, 30,000 out of your 401k, but you can absolutely take, some money out of it to help you. Okay,
very good. So my point being to you is once I'm able to get the retainer, which we just say is $5,000 for your firm, and it goes up more, then I can actually go and get money out my pension or my 401k in order to continue to pay you. Is that correct?
If that's needed, if there's no other means to assist you with, and it's not, in bad faith, yes. And the court will know that, the other parties will know that. And that's just what measures had to be taken for them to have adequate representation.
And then that can be done. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask this question. Do you have payment plans for divorce?
They're very difficult to monitor. I would say no. Usually we've been there. Unfortunately, it is difficult to monitor. It is difficult for people to keep up with. So we personally do not. We do know people who do have payment plans and a better system in place to monitor.
Right. Okay, now let me ask this question. We already said that you do not have the right to a court-appointed attorney. When you're looking at child support, what are the factors that the court looks at to determine who should pay what?
So the court's looking at, there's a calculator that the state of Michigan uses, and the court looks at the overnights that you have with the child and your income, both incomes of the parties involved. There isn't the same one in California, and that's not relevant here, but there is a available calculator by the state of Michigan that allows you to gauge how much you possibly have. But again, it's primarily the income of both parties, the overnights the parties have with the child, verifiable child care costs. That's factored in at times, whether or not the people have other children that they have to support. But again, primarily it is the overnights and income of the parties.
Okay, very good. Okay, got a question. And I'm going to take a couple questions from Lori. She says, what if you have a page or a lawyer, but you have not gotten satisfactory representation? Is there some way that they can go to a new a lawyer or come to you?
A paid lawyer and they're not satisfied?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would always advise, if you're not happy with your lawyer, you always have the ability to go find another one that's going to help you. You're only going to get divorced in this specific divorce one time. So you have to make it worth it. And if you're not, you got to go.
Okay, very good. And that's what I say. Listen, if it don't fit, you must have quit, baby. Don't be riding that out. Oh, I'm gonna stay with him because I done paid him $5,000. You better jump off that. Okay, jump off that bandwagon, baby, because you mess around and you'll pay later. You gonna pay now or you gonna pay later? Another good question that we got here. What if you have an inheritance before marriage and you get married and you receive it during the marriage? Is that person entitled to it?
Now, that's a very big legal issue. We have been faced with that issue. It just depends on the way that you were withdrawing it, the way that you were receiving it. If you were using it for the benefit of your marriage, there's different things that you have to consider. And a lot of things, the way the court will examine it and figure out is if you are commingling it. Did you keep this separate and did you spend it on separate things? Or did you commingle it? Did you pay your house note with it? Did you pay the bills with it? Did you buy you and your husband cars with it? At some point, it'll become commingled and you guys are dependent on that inheritance. But it just depends. Again, it would be a full examination of the record.
So basically speaking, when you got your money, I'm gonna go there, okay? And y'all went out there and got some matching Gucci gym shoes. Y'all took trips together. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden you found out he cheating and you want a divorce and you want to say, well, that $100,000 I got from my mama ain't none of yours. You commingled it at that point. And so therefore there's an issue that's there. If you have it from an inheritance, keep it separate. But when y'all was all in love,
keep it very separate.
When y'all was all in love, well, what about that? What about the honey pot? Let's go take some money out the honey pot and go on a trip. And they keeping receipts too. So you better be careful with that. So what are the factors? Now, we just seen what's going on with Kanye West. Okay. One of the issues that Kim basically said, well, as a primary caregiver, what does that mean? And what is a custodial environment and why is it important?
So that'd be the way that I read it. I read that two different ways.
Okay.
One, she's saying I'm the primary provider and caregiver. I think with the provider element or point, she was trying to say she pays for them, she makes more, blah, 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 blah. I think that was just full of drama. Mm-hmm. But as far as the primary caregiver, she's saying I'm taking care of these kids. They're with me at all times. They're physically with me. Like I'm the custodial parent. And that does get into the established custodial environment discussion, because that's what the court looks at when they start to examine who should get custody. You want to know who has the established custodial environment to determine your next step. So the court stops there. They say, who has this established custodial environment? Is it both of you guys? Is it one of you guys? If it's not, then the court's looking at the rest of your case differently from a different lens. And it gets very legal in nature, but it's...
And so the point of it is that if you're going through a divorce, okay, and, you know, he wants to be out in them streets or she does, you need to make sure, just lay low, don't say nothing, write down them dates that you had them, you taking them back and forth, because then you can go to the court and say, here go my documentation. Here go my documentation. I've had them. I buy their food. I do this. I do that, etc. And then the court will say, well, the custodial environment is with you. And that means you up here and he got to get up here. But if you say it's joint, y'all both here, and then that's when the more fighting can occur. So isn't it almost better?
I would say don't be afraid. Don't stray away from it. The established custodial environment is not just who the kids are physically with. Okay. They can be with one parent all the time and still have that with you. Like what the court looks at is who the kids look to for love, who the kid who they look to for support, who they look to for discipline, who they look to for, you know, a host of things, but it doesn't mean that they have to be physically with you 100% of the time. You can have a very strong relationship with your children and only have them 3 days a week. So the established custodial environment it's an idea. It is a thought. It is not something physical that you grasp. It's that relationship you have with your kids or the relationship you have with your parents.
Okay, very good. Okay, and let me ask this. How do you go about getting child support? And do you have to wait for the divorce is over to get it?
You don't have to wait for the divorce to get over or to end for you to get it. It depends on the nature of your guys' breakup. If you're not getting along at all, not talking at the time the divorce starts, you probably want to file a motion to get temporary child support.
And how soon can you get that?
It just depends. I mean, ideally, in the real world, I mean, in an ideal world, you would want it to take a couple weeks to be processed. You can get a motion heard depending on what county you're in. Unfortunately, right now with the protocols for COVID, there's different counties that can process things much quicker. And I mean, I would say in Oakland or Macomb, you can probably get a temporary award within 2 to 4 weeks.
But you can't do all of this if you don't have no lawyer.
No.
Okay, so if you don't got games engaged, it's gonna look. I know them. Now I don't know about nobody else, but that's what. Okay, what can I do if my ex won't pay child support? I'm not playing it. I don't want nobody in my business, and I'm not paying. That sounds familiar.
Yes. Take them to court. Take them to court. The more they violate the order, the more the court sees how defiant they are. And there are other ways to challenge them or punish them. There's fines assessed and attached to non-payment. You can be held in contempt and get an order. You know, you don't want to get to that point, but get an order issued for their arrest. There's many different things, but you do want to notify the court. Don't let that slide and don't let that pass, because then there's no record of non-compliance when you do need something from the court.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to shift a little bit and let's talk about our people who are in situations where they have children and they're not married. Okay, now let me ask this. How does a non-married person establish parentage in Michigan?
So there's a couple ways. The best and easiest way is likely with the affidavit of parentage at the hospital when the child is born.
Okay, what's that?
And that's just a form they give you at the hospital. If you're there, they'll give it to you. You fill it out, and they will, verify everything's correct. Send it to the state, and you're on the kid's birth certificate. If that doesn't happen, then you have to go through the court. And there's there's paternity actions that are filed, and then you are directed to take paternity tests and establish it through the court legally.
Okay, very good. So if I have a child, can I put my baby's daddy, the child's father, on my birth certificate? Or he got to do it? Can I fill in his name?
No, you can't. You cannot. You need to
you need this Ray baby. Yeah. Let me have this Ray baby, and I am going to write down Raynard Johnson is the daddy, and that's it. I already know his social security number. I know y'all ladies know all that, but you can't do that. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, all right. Now let me ask this: do you have to consent for blood tests to determine paternity?
So the court will order it. And so if you file a paternity action and, if you're a mother or a father, the court will enter an order that requires the other party to participate and comply with.
Now, here's Lori. What can I do if I've asked my attorney for an interim distribution to assist in paying the bills since I was a dependent? Let me say this to you. Many of the dissatisfactions that you all are expressing about your lawyer may come from two things. Number one, they don't know what they're doing, or number two, you didn't pay them enough money.
Yeah.
And let me say this to you. When you pay somebody, well, my lawyer, 20, all I got to do is pay $2,500. You're going to get $2,500 worth of headache. They're not going to do what you're supposed to because it's based upon the amount of money that you paid. So you might got a litany list. You see the list, all them questions like that. They're going to say, she paid for 2. The rest of them, I'm not doing it. It's an investment. What I tell people in life, it is an investment or a bill. What is a bill? When you go to fine dining, when you go with your girls, to Bahamas, that's a bill. An investment is if I'm gonna put something in a law firm, I'm gonna get it back. Why? Because I'm gonna get better child support. Higher child support. I'm going to be able to get a better property distribution as well as a pension. But it's what you put in. Now, I'm not going to be going to preaching and everything, and we're going to get off of this in a minute, okay? But you know what amazes me? It amazes me that people will take all this money and go get their body done, okay? Let's go there, spend $15,000, and then you want to give your lawyer $2,500, and you want him to do all of this. But you got to put your priorities right. And having custody with your children, being able to have a pension, being able to have a property distribution, that is an investment. So ladies, I know it's, I looked on there, some doctor was advertising a BBL for $4,999. I was like, what? But if I have other issues, if I'm not getting child support, if I'm contemplating a divorce, you better just say, listen, I done been fat for a little bit. I got me a little something on now, okay, trying to hold me in because I got to do other stuff with my money. You understand what I'm saying? So unfortunately, I see a lot of people on the feed that are dissatisfied. And what I have to say, two things: they're not experienced or you're not paying enough money. What we're saying is this, and what I appreciate with Attorney Game, she keeping it 100. If you got $2,500, you just gone to somebody else, okay? All right. But that's not the threshold here. And you're going to get quality work. I can attest to that. I have sent numerous clients, and I'm going to tell you this, they're going to put in more work than they even charge, but that's what is necessary in order for you to get the kind of quality representation. I just want to share a story with you without going into detail. I had sent them a client, and the woman was just so upset about her husband cheating. Anyway, he had filed for divorce. Anyway, he was lying about the property was in foreclosure. He was saying different things. He didn't have no insurance, etc. She was able to show that what he said was inaccurate. This woman worried herself so much. 3 days before, they were going to do this divorce, she went into a coma. Attorney Gaines' husband was able to find case law that allowed them to then do a counter divorce. As a result, they did a counter divorce, and unfortunately, 3 days later, she passed. But had you not had zealous fighting attorneys, he would have gotten everything. Her children wouldn't have gotten anything. And when she came to me, she said, will my babies be okay? And I said, I'm going to make sure that they will. But this is my point being to you. It is an investment. And with this COVID, you don't know what's going on. Give you another situation. We're going to talk about that as we get into probate. Man and woman, they have been divorced for 25 years. She done bought a house and everything. Found out she died from COVID. Here he come. He going to split it with the kids. He ain't put one dime down. Why? Because she didn't think that this was going to happen. With COVID, here today, gone tomorrow. You don't know. So that's why when we're going to talk about probate, why that's important. And what is probate exactly?
So probate is it's its own area of law. It's its own court. And it's where you go when when you need to administer someone's assets who died. It's basically somebody dies, you need to figure out what to do with it. And the probate court's the only body that can tell you what to do with it.
Okay, but I got a quick question for you. In this scenario, I'm not married. Okay, I got a baby, but I want to make sure that my child gets something from their father. What can we do when I come to you so that we can make sure that we can do something, a trustee or something? What is that we can get something so that my child ain't just out in the wind like that?
I always recommend trust in these situations. The reason being is upon death, your child can be entitled to something. When you have a father that you're not married to or a mother that you're not married to, but it may not be as much as you want, and it may not be as much as the father intends. If there's other kids out there, again, I don't want to just do men, women. If one dies and there's other kids, other family members, or a trust or will indicating that they want something otherwise, it's always nice to establish something for your child. And at the end of the day, if there are other children involved with the person who dies, you at least want your own. And I'll use an example that I really admire this girl or young lady is she has a great relationship with the father of her children or of her child, and he's getting remarried. And she said, you know what? I need to get a trust for him. He's going to come in, he's going to cooperate, but I need a trust immediately for a life insurance policy to give directly to my son upon death. And that will go to her son after the death of, that'll go to her son when he dies outside of probate court. And I always advise that because it's going to be, it'll be rough. And it will be very,
and let me say this to you. And ladies, you all need to have this conversation. I mean, let's be for real. No, I don't speak death on me. let me tell you something, death is guaranteed, okay? And so if you bring a child in this world, you need to have a grown folks conversation with your baby daddy and say, listen, we need to make sure that little Johnny and little Tabitha get what they deserve when you check on out of here, because I need my children to live a certain lifestyle. And as a matter of fact, you can put a life insurance in a trust. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that's always advised. And you could control it. You could say, I don't want any of the money to go to the mom. I want it to go to my kid. I want the money. And you could put strings on your money. The best thing about trusts is there's a lot of control. And it's called, what they called in law school is a dead hand. And that's you controlling it after you die. And you could say, I don't want the mom controlling this. I don't want anybody in the family controlling
and here's the situation. And I got that. Now, just say, for instance, you're a man out here and you got children. You say, but I don't trust the baby mama to, okay, because I know she's going to have BBL for her and Birkins for everybody. Can we come to gains and say, we're going to agree that this third party is the trustee in the event that something happens, that I know that my child will be taken care of?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can do that. You can have a third party. You can appoint somebody in your family. You can definitely make sure that the child is taken care of, and even, include provisions to have your child act a certain way if you don't agree with the way the mother or the other parent.
And let's talk about that. We've seen a number of younger rappers be killed. They're upcoming, making music. One comes to mind, Young Dolph, different other, Juice WRLD, different people. I don't think he had children though. But what if I'm dating someone and, they have a business or they doing houses or whatever? What can I do? Can I come to you once I have that child and say, I want a trust established? And how do I go about doing it? And what would the trust be?
I mean, I guess in that instance, it depends. Is the dad going to come in with her?
No, but I'm saying to you, and this is what I'm saying to you ladies, this is a conversation you need to have with them. Okay. Listen, something could happen to me. Something could happen to you. We need these children to be taken care of. Yeah. And that's a grown folk conversation, okay? And you need to find your way to a lawyer so that you can be able to say, in the event that something happens, in the event there's a $1 million trust made up of a life insurance policy that we can both pay, that this child will be able to have this upon my death.
Or pay the insurance. Get a policy on him for the kid.
Exactly.
I mean,
but put it in a trust. And the reason that you don't put it on the child's name by itself is because if it's a minor, you got to go through probate. And let me tell you what many times those judges will do. They can appoint their friends to be over that money, and charging $300 and $400 an hour, and you trying to be cheap and get a little maybe a $1 million policy. Guess what they're gonna do? Because you didn't get a lawyer. They're going to put one of their friends over there. They're going to bill your estate, your account, and you're going to end up paying either way. You might as well have a real conversation. When you start having children, it ain't me and Johnny Boo no more. I got to make sure that this child lives a certain way. I want him to go to this private school. I want him to be able to have braces. I want him to be able to go to college. How are we able to do it? We come down to gains, and we establish a trust. And we make sure that at least my kid is going to get it. Because what if you have a situation where you one of many baby mamas, and then it's only one pot that you can get? And normally the first person that run to it is going to get a percentage of it, or they're going to put a lawyer that the judge knows to administer it, and you're not going to get any money either way. Let me tell you something. Either you can be a spectator or you can be a participant. And when it comes to your children, you need to be a participant. What if I have a child that has special needs? Is there a trust that we can set up for my child with special needs?
There is. And special needs trusts are always good, because if your child has special needs and receives government benefits, you always want to protect those for the rest of their lives so that they are able to continue to live lives as normal as possible. So special needs trusts will allow you to place large sums of money within a trust for the benefit of, your special needs child or adult, but allow them to, again, still receive their government benefits. And those are very important. because a lot of times this money is for the rest of their lives and for them to live in a way that can be as normal and comfortable as possible.
Now, let me just say this to you. This is only legal information. We cannot resolve legal issues that you may be plagued with without having retained attorney. Okay, so I can't be, well, Vonda Evans said she used to be ex-judge and you don't know what you're doing because I ain't pay you enough. Listen, this is only legal information. I'm not trying to oversee what your attorney is doing. What I'm saying to you is, if you are not getting what you deserve, okay, then you need to call Gains and Gains, point blank. You understand what I'm saying? You need to say, hey, hold on for a minute. Let me call them. And by the way, what is the number that we need to call you?
So you can call our office at 248-733-3378.
Again, that number is going to be what? Slow it down.
248-733-3378.
Okay, very good. Okay, what is an estate plan?
So an estate plan, again, it's a plan that allows you to establish what you want upon death. So in our office, it will include a will, it will include a trust, it includes a power of attorney for medical decisions, power of attorney for financial decisions, and a HIPAA authorization.
And what's all that? Tell us in short words.
So the will just direct what you want done when you're when you die.
Okay.
Power of attorney is really good for finances and medical decisions and healthcare decisions, because we never know when we're going to be incapacitated. We can get hit by a car tomorrow and have no idea what to do with our affairs. And so this appoints someone in the event that you are unable to make any decision. And
let me say this to you all, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't just for old people. Huh? No. You better, excuse me, it's young people's dying out here too. So you need to have an estate plan. And basically, if something unforeseen happens, you can be able to say, I want to be on life support. I don't. But you don't have to worry about your children. Oh man, I just got in a car accident. Who's going to pay their tuition? It's already taken care of. Why? Because you call Gains and Gains and they done put out all the proper paperwork. So if you're in a hospital and you're recuperating, or if you pass on, and die or something, you can rest assured your child is taken care of. What hurts me, and being a judge who practiced in the family division, okay, and let me say, I say civil is criminal any day, was to see people, good people, who had children that they had in private school, who they were providing for them medically. Then all of a sudden this person dies and there's no money for you to keep up with them, and all that lifestyle goes. So what she's saying, if I come in, or me and babe dad, or me and ex or whatever, we still can come in and say we want to do an estate plan in the event something happened to him or me, so that our children will be taken care of. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and you could designate money to certain expenses, to specific expenses, to ensure that they're done and paid after death. So that's the most important thing. The private school thing is definitely important.
Okay, so say for instance, you get a $300,000 policy. or $1 million. That might only be you paying $78 every 2 weeks. And guess what? When you pay, she said $100,000 go to pay off the house, $100,000 to the children's fund for them to go to school, and $100,000 for their medical benefits out of your $59 or $79 that you paid every 2 weeks. We have to start having this conversation. People, well, I'm gonna live forever. Ain't nobody gonna live forever. Okay, that's not gonna happen. We need to start making plans now, and we keep putting it off. How many people, don't even raise your hand, I know you don't even have a will. You do not have a will. Well, because let me tell you something. My auntie said this: death do two things. It brings families close together or tear it apart, but they're not the same. Why wouldn't you call these people and get you a will made so you ain't got to break up daughter and son? Let me tell you something. I've seen money destroy families, and you need to get that done. But I don't want to pick over one. What they gonna do? Dig you up and set you on fire? You already gone. So guess what? They have to live here with each other. So if they say, well, mama said you was the favorite, don't do that. Make sure you do a will. Now, let me tell you what some people say. Well, you don't need no lawyer to do no will. You're right. and they break in your house and they destroy it, and you don't have a will, and that can
That's
happen.
happened. It's happened so many times.
So
Or there just
basically
is
the
no
law
will,
say
no one can
I
find
can
it.
sit up here and I'll make me a will. I'll make it, and then I'm putting my Bible on the 91st Psalm and put it in there. And they gonna know where they put that Bible, where they put that will under the 91st Psalm, and they gonna go and say, I found the Bible. It's right next to the bed, and they gonna take it and they gonna tear it up, and they gonna go, we ain't got it. And guess what's gonna happen? You can't do nothing about it. But when you get a lawyer, what happens when they do the will?
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely register it at the probate court so we know that it's there, and always retain copies of it. So in the event that something happens, we've had many families come back and say, I think my mom did my will with you in 2013 or 2014. So they always have a way to return to us. They can change things anytime. We have people call us all the time and say, I need to make this change to my trust. I need to make this change to my will. Can you do that and update it? And that's what we do. But I've also seen on the other side where wills were set on fire, hypothetically, but really lost, destroyed.
And we know that's against the law, but guess what? Who gonna know? You ain't got no cameras in the house, and you take that with it happens. And we need to deal with this. And you talking about, and listen, you all know.
Forged. When they're replaced and forged.
You all know. Money will come between families quicker than anything. And what we want saying to you, do an estate plan. So, please. Macy, Attorney Gaines, I come to you, I come to your husband. I want to do an estate plan. I know billionaire and all that. What would an average estate plan run me specifically?
So what I call a simple estate plan is, like a will and your power of attorneys. We could do those for $500 to $750. When it includes a trust, it's going to go up to $25 to $5, and that's exactly what we need, because it's very, very difficult for us to establish a estate plan without advising you to do the trust. So I say people want the simple one, but the trust is what you need to avoid probate court in the future. So
now let me
you want to do the trust.
I got a house. I paid my house off. It's something called a lady will, a lady girl.
Ladybird Deed.
Tell me what a Ladybird Deed is.
So the Ladybird Deed will definitely transfer your house upon death automatically. So
you don't have to go to probate court?
No probate court. No probate court.
So basically it go from my name to your name without us going to court.
Yep. Just file your death certificate.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Why should you have one? Will it save me money?
It'll save you a lot of money, because you're going to end up, if mom leaves a house upon death with nobody to receive it, you have to go to probate court. There's countless cases that come in each week solely to transfer mom's house. And it gets frustrating and sad when the person who lived in it, took care of it, and took care of her upon death is not entitled to the full 100% and has to go to probate.
And what about the fact that the judge can appoint somebody over that as a concern? Not a concern, but as somebody to assist, and that person get paid instead of gains and gains, and they're going to do what they want to do opposed to doing what you want to do. And you've worked too hard for your property. Let me say this to you. And this is a real conversation. I have 2 children. I have made a decision who going to get what, how they going to get it, because I know what they're capable of. I don't live with them. You got to have a real conversation. If you know that one is good with finances, leave that money with them. If the other one good with property, leave that to them. But to die and not be able to say what you want, those attorneys on an average case, they're going to make $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 off the case anyway. And they can sell assets to satisfy their fees if you die, because you don't want to make a decision, because you don't want to upset anybody. They ain't got to know. All you got to do is say, I'm going down to gains and gains. You come down here and make a decision. We talk about children. What about if I'm going to remarry? And my ex-husband, and I don't do anything, and I'm married now, but I have 5 children. Me and the man just got married a couple months ago. I died without a will. What's going to happen to my property?
You really need to make sure that you have a plan, because there's a chance that the spouse has the option to elect it's called a spousal share, and that could be a substantial part of your estate. So your children could be possibly left with nothing because you did remarry, and the law does favor a spouse, in estate planning and in probate.
And let me say this to you. When I retired from the bench, I said, I don't know if I'm going to get a husband, but I put down there, listen, and no time for that. My kids getting this money. But we got to get that done, and that's done in writing. Let me ask this. What is a power of attorney?
So power of attorney is just a document that allows a person to stand in your shoes if you become incapacitated. So if you're ever in a place where you can't make decisions, then that person is allowed to essentially do what they believe you would do or do what they want you to do on their behalf.
And so what I can do is come down to gains and say, listen, I want, this person to be over me and this and that. And you will do that document as well.
Yes. And it's very important because a lot of times if there is no power of attorney in place, then you do have to go to probate and you do have to apply for a guardianship or a conservatorship. And sometimes the court,
what's the difference?
They don't know
because you're using them big words. Tell us what's the difference. Conservatorship, guardianship, and power of attorney. Explain that to us.
So a power of attorney is something that you use again to identify who you want to stand in your shoes to make financial decisions and healthcare decisions. If you don't have one of those in place and you need somebody to act as your decision maker, then you have to go to probate court. So you would seek a guardianship, which deals with your healthcare decisions, or a conservatorship, which deals with your money and property. And I always recommend that people fill out power of attorneys and they have established appointed power of attorneys, because if you go to probate court or if your family is required or have to go to probate court, the court may appoint somebody that you don't necessarily want to serve in that capacity. So the court doesn't know you. They don't know your family. They don't know your dynamic. And what they're going to do is say, well, let me see if they have any family members. And it may be a family member that you don't want over your decision making, or you don't want a family member dealing with your bank accounts and knowing what your debts are and what your obligations are.
So now what's a guardian? Now you said the conservators over the money. What's the guardian over?
So the guardian's over like your healthcare decisions in the event, again, if you're not able to make decisions. A lot of these have had to be used during the COVID-19 epidemic. I mean, if somebody ends up in a coma or they end up on a vent, there's hard decisions that have to be made, and that person has to stand in them shoes and make them.
Okay. And what about, and the conservator, what is that?
So that's the one that deals with assets, but that you have to go to court to obtain.
Unless we come to you.
Have a power of attorney. Yeah.
So when we come to you, how is it that we don't go to the court? Because remember, when you go to the court, they're taking a fee. They're going to appoint lawyers that will charge their fee. So it's not like they're doing it for free, like a court appointed. It's a fee. Why not have your lawyer that has your desires, that's written down what you want, what you said to do this? So when I come to you and I want to do a power of attorney, what are those things that you said that we can do it again?
So the power of attorney.
The estate plan.
Oh, okay. So the will, trust, power of attorney for healthcare decisions, and power of attorney for financial decisions. Sorry.
Now, what is a trust again?
So the trust is like, it's a mechanism, it's a tool that you use to place your assets in and control them from there. I like to call it like I like to think of it as like a cup, because it's not a physical thing. And when you die or prior to dying, you think about everything you want in this cup, and then you want to decide how to pour it, what to pour to who and how much to who. And that really allows you to get creative with things. I've had people say, I will give my daughter $10,000 if she doesn't get a tattoo before 30. Or, I want $100,000 given to my kids for their first home, and they need to purchase their first home. Like, there's ways to do these things that are very helpful to kids, or to make sure that they are living comfortably if you die when they're minors, and things like that. So I think that it's helpful. It's good. You can give incentives to your kids to act a certain way well beyond your death. So
you can say, technically speaking, say for instance, I get a $1 million insurance policy. I can say, well, I'm gonna give Naomi $1 million, or the first child that doesn't have a tattoo, time they're 25, they get this $100,000.
Yeah. Or you say, I see it's very common. A lot of our clients say, I'll give $10,000 for the high school graduation, $20,000 for the undergrad graduation, $50,000 for a doctorate or a medical or
and
law
this is
degree.
all coming out of your insurance policy that you already paying for. But now you have an opportunity to say what you want, how it goes somewhere. And so you're not just, when you die without a will, you're letting the court by the law divvy it up. They can do whatever they want. They can smoke crack. They can do whatever they want. They can, do things.
Not the court, but the kids.
I'm talking about the kids. They can do whatever they want to. They can sell your body. They can do whatever they want to. Here, no, it's in black and white, baby. So this needs to be done. One of the issues that we see is, oh my God, did I see on the criminal side, were people not having proper planning and making decisions. Here, you can plan for they could be in diapers and you just plan for their graduation while they in diapers. All you got to do is after you go see Gains and Gains, what do? You just make sure that you pay the insurance policy. They already going to tell them, this is going to be for you. This is going to be for you. So they're not out here by themselves. So they have an opportunity to get an education. Because if you leave and you're not able to take your money and give it to them, their family members might go get a BBL or do whatever the hell they want to do with that money. That's not appropriate. And we see it often. I have seen, and let me ask this, and we're going to tune down a little bit because we've done a lot already. But how many times have you seen people who they'll have a caregiver? You got a caregiver. They're going to come over there and bring you dinner. They're going to make sure your house clean. And listen, you want them to get something. You die without a will, they ain't going to get nothing. Why? Because you didn't take the time to write it down. This is not expensive stuff. This is not for grandpas and grandmas either. This is for people who want to be able to contribute to their families and make sure that their children's children have an opportunity so that we can break some of these generational curses. Just because your mama don't want you to go to college, grandma made a way, and the fun is in grandma's name. So let me ask you, I want to deviate a little bit and then we're going to finish it up. What if I am getting child support, say for instance, and it's not enough? Is there a mechanism that I can go by increasing that amount?
Yeah, you can go to court to modify your child support, but you have to make sure that there is a change of circumstance. So if you believe that he's making more money or you lost your job, you have another kid, there's all different things that could happen. If your parenting time changed and the payer has more or less parenting time, probably less parenting time, then you can go modify it. And the court's always available to address those circumstances and change it.
And what I'm saying to you ladies, or gentlemen, whomever's getting the child support, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Okay. But trying to go back, I'm gonna start him off at 50. I'm gonna see how he do. Okay. You better leave that alone. You better start at 500. Okay. I'm gonna start at 50. Can the non-custodial grandparent petition a court for visitation of my child if something happens to me?
That's very difficult. And I have to be very frank about that.
There are no grandparents' rights.
Is the live parent, is one parent alive?
One parent's alive, but the other parent's dead, and the grandparent of the deceased wants to visit. Do they have grandparents' rights in Michigan?
It's a very high burden. I would say essentially, it's difficult. It's very difficult. You would work better. It would be better off getting an agreement with the parent who's alive, if possible. But,
okay.
The court will, you can go through litigation, and most of the time the court will keep encouraging an agreement because the law is not necessarily established enough, I think, in my opinion, for grandparents to have that much power.
And
it's very sad.
Here's a hot question. What can I do if I don't want my children to visit with a non-custodial parent if they're being exposed to a dangerous environment?
Let the court know immediately. Go to court, ask them to suspend, the parenting time if there's a legitimate threat to your children. The court will always respond to those. And there's CPS as well.
Okay, now listen.
There's CPS.
And this is the thing I get all the time. People will call me, well, listen, he over there smoking weed in front of my child, and I don't want him smoking weed in front of my kid. I know weed is legal. And I've even had the non-custodial parents say, well, the weed is legal and I can smoke weed if I want to in front of the child. Is that something that you see when you're dealing with being able to have custody, etc. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different reasons why people want to come in and change custody, change parenting time, and do all those things. I always say make sure that they're grounded in reality, make sure that they're not basically BS, and that you have like proof. And it's not because of your spite, being spiteful and trying to get back at the other parent. There's a true risk of harm, and your children are faced with that going to the other parent's house. The court will hear you and the court will understand. And if presented to them properly, the court will, allow you to not take them to the other parent's house.
And the thing about it is, and this is the last question, we're going to close it up after this, that I wanted to ask you about basically when I'm going through my divorce, and this is what I suggest, it's better to have it and not need it than to need and not have it. You need to go through it with your litany, with your lawyer. If they have extracurricular activities that you want the child to be able to be engaged in, if you want them to be able to do swimming, if you want them to be able to do counseling, if it's not in writing, it does not exist. So you have to make sure that that is a part of your judgment of divorce, which we know can be modified later on changed circumstances. Is that correct?
It can be modified, but at your divorce, you want to put everything on the table. Even if you don't know whether or not it's possible, let your lawyer know everything. And there's a chance it could say, yeah, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, we can't do this, but you have to try everything, because you don't want to spend the rest of the years of the child's life till they're 18 coming back to court to modify things. If it's not in there, there's no duty for the other parent to do it.
So listen, we've come to the bewitching hour. I think that we put a lot of information out. One of the things that you all have trusted me, for those of you who have supported me for my 22 years as a retired judge, a former judge, you trusted my judgment. And you trusted me to guide you legally and to make some decisions that you trusted that I would. You ain't always agree with me, but you said, by and large, you're going to do that. When I left the bench, my desire was to provide people with quality representation. If I don't do divorces, but if I were in a courtroom, if I were a specialist. So I'm not a person who easily supports different individuals. You got to prove to me that you Lil Vonda in that courtroom. I got to know. And one of the things that I will say is that I am so very happy with the representation that you have provided my clients, that I have been able to refer you to, that when I sent you to them, I didn't have a problem. So if you call me, and the number's on the screen, my 1833 Vonda Law and the 1866 number that's on the screen, I'm not going to BS you. I'm going to be honest with you, because I'd rather you be in a position where you're going to win. People call me all the time, I can't afford it. Well, listen, I'm not Jesus. I can't make water into wine. I can't do it, but I can steer you the best way that I can. When you're talking about a divorce, when you're talking about estate planning, when you're talking about your children, this is an investment. I can't say it to you enough. So I'm just so honored that, the people that did tune in were able to it. Do I plan to do this in the future with other lawyers? Absolutely. Feel free, and we'll be able to answer some questions. But this was an opportunity for me to give y'all legal advice for free 99. Okay. Now, after this, do not be calling me, oh, I didn't get in the app. It don't work like that. So thank you so much. But Macy, what would you like to say to the people that are listening? And what about, now this thing, you practice for California and Michigan. Is that correct? Now you don't do no out of state, right?
So California and Michigan, anywhere within those two states. So
right. But you do know people in other states you could potentially give a referral to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. But tell us something that you like for the people that are watching. What would you like to impress upon them so that they would know?
I think the most important thing to do when approaching like any legal issue or going through problems, I understand that most of the time we meet people in their most vulnerable times of their lives. We meet them in the worst times of their lives. And what I've seen is that they're, a lot of you guys need assistance with making decisions. A lot of you don't want to make decisions on your own. But what I've always encouraged people to do is become knowledgeable in what you want and how you want to get it, and make yourself very clear. Be assertive and be very selective in who you use to assist you. I think one of the biggest things that I forgot to mention earlier, and what I see often, is an attorney charging a very low retainer to get you in the door, and then when it's exhausted, they leave you to dry, and that's hurtful and that's hard. So prior to retaining any attorney, just become very knowledgeable. Ask them questions. If they don't want to answer them, then you know that that's probably not the one for you. But attorneys should always be open to answering your questions and making sure that your needs are clear prior to letting them know, or prior to retaining them. If they're not positive about being able to meet those needs, then you have to be selective and you have to move on. So I would say be picky, but make sure that your desires are paramount at all stages of the process.
And I'm going to say this to you, and I'm just going to piggyback what she said. When I've heard people charge rates as a retainer, they know that they can't, that is unreasonable, but it's a bait to get you in the door. They don't return phone calls. They don't return emails. They have you on my feed asking me questions that they won't do. Why? Because they didn't charge you enough. Because they needed just enough to, maybe pay a car note or just enough to pay a mortgage. And then when you call, they shoot you to voicemail or they're not answering. That is not a proper investment. When you pay, and at least I know it gains and gains, and you come in the door, they're going to charge you, but you're going to get your money's worth. And you're going to leave out satisfied that you had a lawyer that was able to listen to you. But please be leery of people saying, oh, I can do it. Just give me, what you got in your pocket? Give me $1,500 now. And then I'm going to bill you. And then they don't answer your phone calls. And then you're left in the dust because you out of $1,500. So again, what is your number? How do we get to you? And can they call you Monday?
Yeah, you can call Monday. It's 248-733-3378. And we're generally available throughout the week, throughout the day, and we return calls up to around 9 p.m. So if you don't get a call back right away, the next day is probably the day, but we try to return them, and we do make calls up to about 9 p.m.
And let me say this to you. I'm retired. So y'all call Vonda's Law at 833-866-3252. I'm going to answer them calls, okay? And I'll be able to at least get the information to send it to Attorney Gaines so she can have it. So between the two of us, you're going to talk to somebody, okay?
You
You're
will.
going to talk to somebody. But I want to say, I just so appreciate your husband being able to be with your children, to allow you to come here. He's phenomenal. Let me tell you something. He's a boss. They work together.
Oh, he's
and
great.
that's beautiful. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
That's yin yang. The yin to a yang,
that's
baby.
Secret weapon.
Baby, that is okay. Don't play no games with him. Don't play. He is a wuss. He is the secret weapon. And what I love is that they're able to work together. That they go in there, and let me tell you something. If you got Robbie, you got Macy. Let me tell you something. Different body, one mind. What's that mind to make you win? Let me say this to you.
We've been in fights over how to represent a client because I thought he wasn't doing well enough, or he thought I was.
Baby,
well.
he is a
fight over what is best for the client. I mean, we have literally been in fights where we just stopped talking because he's like, "I'm doing fine. You need to get out of my face." Like, I
already know.
Listen, it only gets better with that type of criticism.
I need ow, that just hurt my feelings. I'm just trying to do some demonstrative. I got to put Robbie on, because sometimes you will have men who have been abusive and they try to bully the woman. Now, Macy can handle her own, but you have the opportunity to have not only Macy, but Robbie. He is a phenomenal lawyer. I can't say enough about them. I love them both. Let me say this, and I just love them so much. I'm so proud of them. I really am. To be able to see two people to really come together and to work together, to be able to have a law firm. I'm so proud. And it was an honor for me to be able to help them. But let me tell you something. If they wasn't doing a business, I'd be having dinner with them. But I'm not sending them no clients, because I ain't going to have nobody calling me, telling me, girl, why you sending people to me? me, they don't know what they're doing. They're professionals, and you will be pleased beyond measure. So listen, your number is again
248-733-3378.
Mine is 833-866-3252. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And bye-bye.